Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome back to PoducateMe, the ESL podcast. And today we have a special guest interview with Val. Hi, Val.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening from.
That's very important.
Yes, let's welcome well and give a very well welcome to Val. It can be like a tongue twister, yes. And Val is a very good friend of mine, like a family, I should say. I like to call Val my friend-in-law
Oh,
because, yeah, Val is married to one of my best friends.
yeah,
So yeah, I kind of inherited him as a friend. Yeah, so that's the friend-in-law.
that makes total sense to me. Yes.
Yeah, and Val is actually a director of condominium management. So today we're going to explore a very interesting topic because today we're going to be talking about housing in Toronto.
Yes.
Yay!
And I don't know. I don't know about you, but this is super interesting to me. This is, of course, I think it's very relevant topic these days, especially just with so many questions about housing and should I buy, should I rent? So I think hopefully we'll be able to get into a lot of that stuff today.
Yeah.
All right. So my first question for you, Val, actually is, what are the main like types of housing that people can find here in Toronto?
Thank you for that question. I think that the Toronto housing landscaping is actually pretty diverse. I mean, you've got a whole variety of types of housing. You've got high-rise condos, you've got low-rise townhomes, you've got rental apartments, you've got detached houses, you've got semi-detached homes, you've got laneway houses popping up, you've got those garden homes now, and
Garden
condos
homes.
are, yes,
Garden
actually.
What's a
homes.
garden home?
Yeah.
So a garden home is basically where you can put a structure in your backyard. There's been bylaws that have been passed in the city of Toronto that allow you to think of if you have grandparents, if you want to park them somewhere if you have a big backyard, if you want to build them a nice little structure, that's something that you can certainly do.
Oh,
But
so it's like
yeah,
when you can build another like house
yes,
basically on your property.
basically, yeah.
How is
Oh,
this different from like a guest house? Because on some
It's
properties.
it's similar. It's quite similar to
Uh-huh.
that. But just to kind of get back on the topic is, and condos are definitely the most common in the downtown core, while you've got rental housing and townhomes are more prevalent in the suburbs. I mean, you've got rental housing also across various locations. So it's very, like I said, it's very diverse.
Awesome. Okay, so you mentioned condos again. So, from your personal experience, what makes condos unique compared to other housing options?
It depends on the way you want to look at it. There's a pessimistic way of looking at it, and then there's a positive way of looking at it. Let's start
Let's
with the
explore
positive.
both. Yeah.
let's do both.
Let's look at the positive. We'll start with the positive experiences. And condos are like mini communities, actually. So you're not just buying a unit or you're not buying a property. You're buying into a shared lifestyle. It's a shared community. There's obviously a condo board. There's shared amenities like gyms, party rooms. There's obviously property management that keeps everybody running and everything running. It's a blend of kind of like a private living with communal responsibility, where obviously it's quite different from your own house or a rental house or rental apartment, right? So on the more negative side, it depends on how long you've lived in a condo. Condos are like fourth level of government. You've got the you've got kind of a triangle type of style of governance where you've got the legislation that's enacted by the provincial government. Then you've got your governing documents, kind of like the Constitution, right? So, and
Mm,
then you've got your rules, you've got your bylaws, you've got, things that you cannot do. And fun fact for your listeners is that there are more rules in condominiums on things that you cannot do than
okay.
things that you can do,
Wow,
right?
who knew?
That makes sense. I think that's kind of generally what rules are, right? It's more a lot of rules in general are like you can't do this or this is not
Yes.
allowed. Yeah, so that makes sense.
So, I
Yeah, and
really like.
condominiums are also very adversarial. The whole legislation is based on adversarial nature, so between the owner of the unit and the corporation. And the one thing that it's very important for people to realize is that it's actually a nonprofit corporation. So it's not it's just like a community association. It's actually almost like a business as well. So think of it's a blend between government and business alike.
Wow. I
Yeah.
really like what you said about the community, that you're buying into a community. So, are there any types of, I don't know, condo complexes where the board will have to consider whether they want you to buy an apartment in their complex or not? Is this the
That
case for
that's
some?
typically done. That's typically done in co-ops. You see that the different type of ownership there. But in condominiums, typically it's the buyer that makes a decision whether to actually buy into a condominium or
Oh, I
buy
see.
a property in the condominium corporation. Because one thing that they look at is a condition of what's referred to as a status certificate, and they often enough make a decision on whether the maintenance fees are high,
Hmm.
whether the reserve fund is depleted, whether you've got legal cases. And
Hmm.
so that certificate kind of gives you a little bit of an overview.
Yeah.
So when you buy a unit, your lawyer hopefully looks at that certificate and tells you, oh, maybe you shouldn't buy this, right? Uh, Often enough, they don't say that, but it's good to ask, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, this is something that I'm actually very curious about. Uh, Renting versus buying. So what are kind of what would you say are the big differences between renting a condo versus owning a condo in Toronto?
I think it's night and day. I think it's night and day. I mean, renting is generally more flexible, I would say.
Yeah.
From somebody that actually rented for and still renting actually. Renting is generally more flexible. There's less commitment. There's obviously fewer responsibilities. I mean, depending on where the kind of structure you live in, right? So if it's a townhouse, you would be looking after it similar to how you look after your own home.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
if you live in an apartment building, those responsibilities most often than not just align with the what's inside your unit. You've got the property management and the rentals where they just look after everything else, including things in your own unit, like the dishwasher, if you have one, like the fridge and everything else, because that belongs to the property management. Owning a condo, on the other hand, means that you're part of, as I mentioned earlier, very important, means you're part of a corporation, a nonprofit corporation. You have voting rights, you pay monthly condo fees, you're responsible for your own unit and things that are within your unit. It's more of a long-term investment, but it comes with, I would say, more involvement. And I think that's the key difference, right? In the rental community or rental housing, you're not really involved. There's not much of a community feel also. But when you're buying into a condo, as I mentioned earlier, you're part of that community, and it's a very long-term investment for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I've heard
Think hard. We have to think hard.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of pros and cons on both ends. I think I guess one of the risks of when you're deciding to buy into a condo, it's at least from what I've heard, it's not as big of an investment compared to like a house or a townhouse or something like that, especially in Toronto. At least this is what I've heard.
I mean, absolutely. I think when you're buying a house, you first of all you're buying a roof over your head.
You're
When
buying
you're buying
land too.
you're buying land as well, right?
Yeah.
So, but when you're getting into a condo, what often enough is actually the one of the key differences that I'm noticing is that people think that it's a rental type of style arrangement where the property management basically insures and takes care of everything, even smaller things like a dishwasher, right?
Hmm.
Well, unfortunately, those are the things that actually belong to the unit, right?
Ex-
So there's the maintenance and repair obligations that are typically within the owner's responsibility, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's a different relationship. So the property management relationship is with the owners of the unit, whereas the in a rental situation, if there's a tenant, that tenant has a relationship with the landlord or the owner, in other words, owner of the unit. So if they have often enough they have a problem, let's say with a dishwasher with a fridge, they would go to their landlord. But often enough, they go to property management, where we kind of tell them, okay, this is within the unit. You have to go back and deal with your landlord. And often enough, landlords are actually not here. So then that becomes another question. How do we deal with that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Lots of pros and cons, I think, for both. I guess
Mhm.
it's about kind of your personality too, right? If you're willing to put in that responsibility and put in
And
that
become a
commitment.
part of the corporate, not only at
Yeah,
work, but also where you live.
yes, become a part of the
Yeah,
corporate
Yeah.
community there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
absolutely.
yeah. I don't know. I'm not planning on buying anything anytime soon, so, but it's still very interesting to learn about it. So, I actually wanted to ask you a little bit about your job because I know I've been witnessing the development of your career, how it skyrocketed from where you started and where you are today. So, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, what does your job involve on a daily basis? So now you are on this big position as a director. So what do you do on daily basis?
The every day is not the same. I think that's the really in summary in basically one sentence. It's not the same day every day. There's always something different happening every minute, every hour, every moment that you're spent in this profession. It's a mix of, I would say, operations, people management,
Mhm.
problem solving. Obviously, I oversee the building maintenance, the coordination with vendors, suppliers. We manage multi-million dollar budgets. So as I was mentioning earlier, these are corporations, right? Nonprofit corporations, and a lot of them have budgets that could be starting with 100,000 to 10 million, right? And those are the things that we look at is their financial operations and well-being. All right, we handle residents, of course, their concerns, whether it's whether it's a dishwasher leak or if it's a big roofing problem, right? And most importantly, we ensure that there's actual compliance with the rules that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, that the whole condo community is based on rules, right? And no two days are the same. There's 1 minute that you're doing this, the other minute that you're doing that. It's a very unique career, and it's not a 9 to 5 job. I think it's very important for your listeners to understand that any position, especially in my role, or even the role of an on-site manager, it's not a 9 to 5. It could be 7 to 7. It could be 8 to 4. It could be 24/7. Right? There are situations where you have a major emergency, where it's fire, flood. It could be somebody got trapped in the elevator. There's all kinds of things going on all the time because there are people living in those
Yeah.
buildings or in those communities.
And you're a kind of a first responders, of course.
We're not getting paid as the first responders, but the
Yeah, well, but you are kind of.
at the end of the day, you would I think that would characterize quite well for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And among all of those things that you mentioned, like building maintenance, problem solving, budgeting, and people managing, what would you say is your favorite?
I think my favorite is dealing with people, even though it's a challenge. It's a common challenge, but I think it's without the people that are part of our firm, a part of the more broader community in the industry. Without the people I call it condo world,
Mhm.
uh, I don't think this job would have made that much. It would. I don't think it's been that pleasant. To be honest with you, I think without the presence of people, sometimes you see actual growth within individuals. They start, they bought the unit, they don't know anything what's going on, and then after a couple of years, they get on the board. They're providing their volunteer hours to the community, and they're really growing. And
Oh,
we've seen multi-generational transfer of units in various communities where you see grandparents that started living there in 1970s,
wow.
right? They passed on to their kids, and now their kids are passing on those units to their kids. And we've seen a lot of that happening. It's
Oh,
really wonderful to see, especially for the managers and my colleagues in the industry that have done work in the buildings for many years. They really see families grow, right? They see kids grow. They see
This is so
it's basic.
cool.
It's like, as I mentioned earlier, it's like a mini little government, mini
world.
little
Yeah.
town, right? You
Yeah.
can, mini little country as well, right?
Yeah.
We have communities that are 1,280 units, 12, there are 1,300 units. So you could have up to 2,500 or even 3,000 people living under the same proverbial roof,
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
right? Some of our small towns in the province of Ontario are actually 1,000 people or
Yeah.
2,000 people, 5,000. So imagine one condominium corporation contains that amount of people.
It's like, like a special ecosystem,
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
like your own rules and your
Yeah.
governance.
That's
yeah.
it's a whole other side to condo living that I never even really like
Exactly.
thought
I
about.
also
That's
never
that's
thought about
really
it.
interesting. It sounds like such a multifaceted kind of job that you have. And it's so interesting to see kind of, I guess, the other side because I've had a couple of I've had to deal with our property management actually a couple of times in the past. Helen knows the story, a long story, but you're right about it being a 24/7 job. I had our property manager for our condo banging on my door at midnight one day. It's a long story. There was something going on upstairs and they needed to get into my apartment. And it was like 1 in the morning and he's on the premises trying to like
Hmm.
fix everything. But it's so interesting to kind of hear about the other end of
Yeah.
it, right? But I would like to know, like, just because when I was in that situation, when the property management came in at like 1 in the morning, I just thought, oof, this seems like a tough job. Like you have to deal with this sort of thing. You have to be available 24/7. What would you say are kind of like, I guess, the bigger challenges in managing a complex, like a condo complex?
I think communication is a big one, and I hope that you got the call before they came in into your unit.
They tried, but
Uh,
my phone's on silent at night. So it was, yeah,
I
they really, no, like, I don't blame them at all. Like they had to do what they had to do, right? So,
Absolutely. So when it comes to that, I think communication is the big challenge because you're dealing with people of different backgrounds also. You have to factor that in. You
yes.
have to factor in the way that your message is perceived, the way that you're communicating, right? With hundreds and as I mentioned earlier, thousands of residents, keeping everybody informed and aligned on your
Hmm.
message is quite tricky,
Yeah.
right? I mean, but
Yeah.
there's also budget constraints and balancing what the building needs with what the owners are actually willing to spend. I think that that's the kind of a every day, every moment thought is how do you want to replace the roof tomorrow because you're experiencing leaks, but you also realize that this is going to be a big hit for your owners in the
Hmm.
budgetary constraint, right? So the and you mentioned the 1 o'clock in the morning visit. There's the unexpected, right? You've got the breakdowns of the elevator, you've got the leaks, you got the floods, you got the fires, fire alarms. I
Yeah.
hope you didn't have any fire alarms in your building.
No, it was flooding from upstairs.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Common occurrence happens all the time,
Yeah.
right? But those are some of the challenges, just kind of juggling those and keeping those organized, of course. And we've got systems that allow us to do that. We've got softwares, we've got tools that allow us to succeed in managing and juggling those priorities. I think, but the managing expectations is also one of those things as well, because everybody has a different perception of what they want, right?
Yeah.
If somebody wants an email response with less than 24 hours, they'll let you know about it. But somebody, doesn't really expect a response within 24 or 48 hours. They just want you to acknowledge that you've actually communicated to them.
Hmm.
So it's a balanced act in everything that we do.
That's actually, you mentioned the words that I wanted to use to describe what you were doing, that it's about constant juggling and balancing. So to keep everyone happy and to keep everyone aligned. And we know that this is one of the biggest challenging challenges to try to keep everyone happy, especially in such a big amount of people is involved. Awesome. And speaking about people and communication, what do you think that people often misunderstand about living in a condo community?
Many think that it's still renting. I think that a lot of owners and residents, they believe that this is a property management takes care of everything.
Mm.
We don't. There's the maintenance and repair obligations in your governing documents. And those little rules that I mentioned in the little country of yours called condo, those rules specifically stipulate, they outline who's responsible for what, who does what, who replaces what, who pays for what as well, and what is insured within the unit and what is insured in the common elements, right? So the key word here is common. So that means there's proportionate share and common ownership of things like your hallways, your elevators, and whatnot. So everybody kind of pitches in, right?
Mm.
So think of your, think of your condo fees. I think we're going to talk about the condo fees a little bit later. It's always a hot topic. Is it low? Is it high? Is it, manageable? And I think that a lot of times people think that the condo fees pay for everything. Well, no, they don't. The the condo fees, it's a common expense. Another word for it, actually, a legal terminology for it is a common expense, right? Which means that you pay for things that are common. So common things are like your roof, your windows, your doors, but not your flooring, not your lights that you have in the unit, not your bookshelf, not the flowers that you put in the unit, right? Not the fridge. The fridge is not, common. The fridge is yours. If you want to buy a
Oh,
Millier
interesting.
fridge, that's on you. In the rental housing, you get the fridge that you get, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you really, I mean, if you want to replace it, you go to your landlord and say, listen, my fridge is dying. I need a new fridge. And they're going to tell you, well, I don't have any money in the budget next year. Right. So it's one
Yeah.
of those things, right? So there's less responsibilities on the rental side, and there's more responsibilities and actual ownership of things that within the unit, right? But also you have to realize that there could be common things within the unit as well, right?
Yeah.
You could have pipes running through your wall. I think
Yes.
if I look back in your unit over there, you probably have at least two, three pipes running through your unit right now, right? At least, well, depending on where that is, but you most likely would have even four, right?
Yeah,
So depending
those are
on
common.
those are common, right? Those are not the main pipes that are running through between walls and between units. They would be common. They would not be belonging to the actual owner, right? So when it comes time to replacement, those common expenses, those condo fees, pay for that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you wanted to replace a pipe, for example, under your sink that's leaking, that's on the owner.
Ah.
I would imagine that's a really big challenge because in a condo, technically it is the owner's private property, but then you have, like you said, common spaces or common things within that property. And there are things that I guess, like when you're talking about, for example, the sink or the toilet, it's connected to pipes that connect to the building, right? And so
Yes.
if the owner, let's say, like cheaps out and uses like a something that could damage the main, do you know what I'm getting at? Like the
Yeah,
main
absolutely.
system, that kind of brings an issue to the property management company, right? But how do you like how is that how can you navigate that or how do you regulate that by um, asking the owners or expecting the owners to provide some sort of like within their personal condo to have utilities or um, appliances that are to code
Compatible.
or things like that.
The the governance of that breakdown is referred to as the boundaries of the unit, right?
Mhm.
So the boundaries of the unit tell you what basically the unit box is, or
Yeah.
what is within the unit, and then what is the common element, and then that constitution, that little constitution that forms part of your little country called Condo World, the that's that constitution kind of outlines everything that you need to know, right? Who repairs what, which pipes, which apparatus,
Mhm.
what are the things that are within the unit, what are the things that are common element, what your condo fees cover, right? That's also in that little constitution.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all in there, right? So often enough, as part of our communication strategy that we do within the firm and when we communicate to owners and residents is that we provide them with those documents and we try to simplify because those are actual legal documents that you would typically see in the corporate world that outline pretty much everything regarding the condominium. So it's often enough that it's hard to read. It's a lot of legalese. It's actually prepared by the lawyers when they register the condominium corporation with the city,
Mhm.
right? It's all legalese. So how it's not really layman. It's not your average person type of
Yeah,
language that's used, right? So it takes guys like us that to kind of siphon that and decipher
yeah,
and provide your listeners and the owners of the condos with a more kind of a summarized version of that.
that makes sense. Okay, I would like to talk a little bit about, I guess, like the current housing situation here
Mhm.
in Toronto right now. What are some of like the trends that you've noticed? It just in terms of like what are people looking for in terms of housing right
It's an Armageddon. I think that
now?
it really it truly is. I mean, you see headlines all the time, right?
Mhm.
The
Yes.
unaffordability crisis
Yeah.
you see, but what people don't realize is that the Armageddon spreads not just on the buyers, but also on the seller's part, right? So they're losing value, right? The because of the higher interest rates, there's a number of key factors that go into it, right? But it's tight. It truly is. The demand is super high, right? With the immigration levels at the high levels, right? And the supply is limited. I'm not sure if your listeners know or not, but a lot of the developers that build in the city and in the surrounding suburbs are actually canceling projects.
Yeah.
In fact,
Yes.
in the next 3 years, you're going to be seeing less and less and less.
Of development.
Right? There's over 1 million units right now in the province. Sorry, in the Greater Toronto Area plus Hamilton. There's 1 million units sitting, ready to be approved, ready to hit the shovel in the ground. I would say roughly half of that is not going to get built. Right?
Wow.
So, but on the flip side, there's a current drive to get into the what's referred to as purpose-built rentals. So actual rental house. So a lot of the developers back in the 90s actually stopped building rental housing. So you still see some of the older rental buildings from the 70s and 80s and even maybe even 60s. They're still there, right?
Yeah.
But they weren't built past I want to say past the 90s. Right? So now we're getting back into that trend where rental housing is being built. Unfortunately, it's not going to be fast enough. There's only 200,000, about 200,000 rental units that are going to be ready to be built,
Mm-hmm.
right? Versus 1 million condo units. You see the difference,
Yeah.
right? But the market has changed. There's not a there's really not a demand for pre-construction condominiums any longer because the resale value is no longer the same, right? The purchase price is actually you can buy, just to simplify, you can buy an existing condominium for much cheaper than the pre-construction, right? Per square
Wow.
footage.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling, and nobody wants it, right? I mean, the other thing is that we have gotten to a point where we have unlivable units. The
Mm-hmm.
sizes of the units that have been built for the past, I would say, since the early 2000s, so from 2000 till now, they were unlivable. Who wants to live in the 400,
Yeah,
square
they're like
foot bucks?
matchboxes.
They're
Yeah.
matchboxes, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
market has finally started to respond to it, right? The market itself, without the government intervention, always will regulate itself, right? what's going to happen is a lot of the developers are now thinking back and they're saying, you know what? I think we should build much bigger bedrooms than we are building them today,
Yeah.
right? You actually want to have a little bit of room. You want to have a little bit of,
Yeah.
wiggle room. You want to move around your unit. You actually want to buy a unit to live in,
Yeah.
right? Yes, it was primarily driven by investors for the 400 square feet boxes. But now we're seeing the trend where people are actually thinking about livable units. And it's a very important term to remember is that for your listeners, is if you want to buy a condominium, if you want to buy a house, you want to make sure it's livable,
Oh yeah.
right? So you want to make sure your bedrooms are sizable enough. You're not going to get a palace, right? Because that's unaffordable. But you look into the units and you buy the units that are actually livable, that you can place, some of your stuff in those units because right now they're not.
No.
This is exactly what I have been hearing as like my dad is a real estate agent and he does say like certain years of condos that have been built within Toronto are not livable. They have not been selling. There are a couple of buildings that he's pointed out that are just like don't ever rent or buy in these places because of
They're
the
tiny.
structure is
Yeah.
terrible. The way that they were built were so fast and so quick that the infrastructure is also very weak. It's not very good quality. Older, sometimes even like the older condos are the better way to go. They're just built better and more thoughtfully. Even just
Oh,
having
they were
like
built differently. They were
yeah,
built
even just having
absolutely
like
differently.
bedrooms not immediately next to each other, you know? Like
Yeah.
why would you want to have like two bedrooms immediately next to each other? Like why don't you put them on the opposite sides of the 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 condo, you know? It's yeah. So anyway. Um okay.
Okay. Also, can you please tell us what advice would you give to someone moving to Toronto and trying to choose between renting, buying, or condo living?
I would have a
People
question
from
for them.
different. Sorry?
I would have a question for those people is that why would you want to do that? But the
People are still coming, you know that.
yeah, no, I know, but why would you want to live in Toronto? Uh, that's usually the question that we typically ask. Why would you want to buy a condo or why would you want to buy, But
Ooh,
look,
okay.
I don't
the
think we can ask them that question, no matter how
no,
much we want to.
I think it's very important that your listeners should get is, and also the people that are buying condominiums, they should look into the how it's built, right? Who the developer is. If you're buying new, look at their reputation, right? Look at some of the issues that may have faced. Like, have they canceled projects? Have they, had issues with bankruptcy in the past? So there are things that you would consider when buying into a condo. Like, has this developer been around for a while, right? There are big shot developers that have been around for 50 plus years, and the quality is there, right? When you're buying units, look at the finishes, look at the, proximity, location, proximity
Okay.
to, subways, to proximity
Yeah.
to,
Infrastructure.
infrastructure, right? You've got things like if you like community style living, look at the neighborhood, right? Look at if there's any nice coffee shops, if there's, daycare nearby, if there's schools, like there's so many consideration. And I think that having a good realtor also would help.
Mhm.
Somebody that can provide you with that good analysis and
Yeah.
really truly a professional, somebody that knows the neighborhood. I think that's very important. All right. So they can place you in the unit and they can place you in the building where all those things are met.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, that's really good advice. I think just also just considering kind of like where you are at what point in your life, or if you're
Mhm.
ready to rent or
Yeah.
buy or live in a condo or a different type of housing, it really depends on your situation.
It's like
Yeah.
nowadays, whenever I'm not planning to buy a housing, but when you're buying even like, I don't know, new earphones, you're like, oh, let me do the research. And so you're doing such an extensive research. I guess that here it's the same
Yeah,
thing. You
look at the
have to
resume.
do exactly, you have to do a research to
Yes.
see what's happening. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're getting a real estate, all right? You're buying real estate.
Mhm.
Why wouldn't you? right? You're not going to buy a car without driving it first, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're not going to buy a car without the Carfax. You're not going to buy a car without the, looking at the maintenance history. That's exactly what you're getting into when you're buying into this mini little country
Very true.
called condos, right? You want to
Yeah.
look at the financials. You want to look at the even property management. We've had people ask, like, who's the property management company, because they've had bad experiences with them in the past,
That's very true.
Mhm.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there are things it's never wrong to ask a question. That's what I always like to say to people. Just ask a question, and if you don't get an answer, you don't get an answer. You look for it yourself.
Yeah.
But if you get a response, hopefully you get a response. That would be advantageous.
Yeah.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, that was
That was
great.
great. Okay, so we're going to finish up our interview today with what we call a quick fire round. And we do this for everybody that we interview. Basically, we will be asking you three kind of rapid fire questions, and you can just give us your answer, the first thing that you think of off the top of your head.
Ready?
I will try.
Dun, 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 dun. Question number 1. Downtown or suburbs?
Suburbs,
Oh,
for
okay.
sure.
All right. Question number 2, high rise or townhouse?
Depends where you live. That actually depended on the previous question, but townhouse for sure.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
Location
Okay.
first.
And I guess that I already know the answer for this question, but still, balcony or bigger living area?
Bigger living room, 1000%.
Really? Oh, but what about
Yeah,
the outside?
you can walk around.
If you live in the
The
Go for
suburb,
a walk.
then exactly. You most likely live in a townhouse. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Val, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for so much interesting information and so many interesting facts and insights that we didn't even think about the community
Yeah.
and living in a condo. I really love the country named Condo and like
Condo
all of
world.
those Condo world,
I
all
love
of
it.
those things you said. Thank you so much once again. We wish you the best of luck in continuing in your career, rising high, like a high rise. Yeah. And yeah, thank you so much, Val.
Yeah,
And
thank
It
you
was a
so much.
pleasure.
if I do have 10 seconds to leave you listeners
Of
just one
course.
thing.
Sure.
The future of the housing looks fairly bright. Yes, we're in a bit of a shock right now, but I think we're going to see in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see some different changes, different types of housing that's coming in, and we're going to ride the wave. So I hope people will be able to stick around. It's a long-term investment, and
That's
thank you.
great to
Thank you.
hear. That's optimistic.
Yes,
I
it
think
is very
that's
Yes,
optimistic for all of us that are living here in Toronto. Thank you so much.
absolutely.
So, for our
Yep.
listeners, if you do have any other questions or comments about the Toronto housing situation, or any feedback that you would like to give, or any questions that you have, please feel free to drop us a line. You can email us at eslpodukateme@gmail.com, or you can follow us over on Instagram at PoducateMe.
Yeah, send us a line. We'll be happy to hear from you. And so this is a goodbye for today. Val, thank you once again for joining. If you have any goodbyes to say for us, this is the time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was I'm very passionate about this kind of topic. It's always nice to share a little bit of knowledge in terms of what this whole condo world looks like and feels like for people. It's challenging. It's exciting. It's a mix of emotions. There could be anger, there could be happiness, there could be so many things in the condo world. I wouldn't trade it for anything else. And if people want to hear more about the actual property management, condo property management industry, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to share that knowledge. It's a very rapid and rising industry, just like the condos. They're
Awesome.
rising, and
Yeah.
I wish everybody well. I hope everybody got even a one thing out of it. Right? It's a lot to take in for sure. And
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to share this.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks
you. It
so
was so
much. It
informative.
was very informative and very useful. Awesome. So until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and
Educate
educate yourself.